All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Hour. Tonight, we're going to be going through our top 5 tips and tricks for fantasy football to help you dominate your leagues. And if AJ actually listens this year, maybe he'll stop drafting kickers in the 8th round. We'll be right back.
Nope.
The Fantasy Six Pack Hour with your hosts, Joe Bond and AJ Applegarth.
Touchdown!
Had to get the nope in there. All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Hour. My name's Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me tonight, Mr. Nope, AJ Applegarth. What's going on, man?
Hello.
Braving the weather out here. This is why the late start, dealing with some issues with power, and AJ randomly turning off his computer. We don't know.
The drive home was okay until it really wasn't. I usually don't pull over, but I did. It was ridiculous. So I found a nice overpass and I held up under there for about 10 minutes.
All right. Well, glad you are safe. And Corey Pieper, what's going on, man?
No storms here like that where I had to pull over. I did have the tornado siren go off, and it's been 157 degrees like the last 5 days, it feels like. So, that was fun too. But we're here, ready to talk some football. Very excited.
Yeah, man. So we like to kind of do these types of shows where, get back to the basics. Sometimes, we just got to do, everybody likes to dig in deep with the analytics and all that kind of stuff. And that is super important. Totally agree with all of that. But, sometimes you just got to get down to the basics. Just let people know what to do, to be able to, as simple as it sounds, like some of the simple stuff people forget. Right. And so you've just got to get back to basics to be able to win your leagues. And, that's what it's all about. But before we jump into that, though, just want to remind everybody to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that little bell to remind you that we are live. And what's going on, Jamie? And Jamie, tip number 1, dominate, don't invite me. Okay. Anyway. And then, of course, jump over to fantasysixpack.net. Our all-access memberships are available. You're going to get access to the award-winning rankings over there. The draft cheat sheet is live. We've got projections during the season. We've got the DFS and the betting projections. Other advice, a very deep waiver wire article. Corey, I don't know if you're going to be doing it again this year, but I think last year you were doing 40 players deep every single week, if not more. It was, that kind of thing. So then, of course, all of us right at your fingertips inside our Discord. And that's where it's at, man. So without further ado, I think we should just get rolling here and jump into our top 5 tips here for fantasy football. And I think what we'll do is we'll go 5 to 1, kind of, do a little countdown. Corey, let's start with you, man. Let's start with you, AJ, and then I'll go last.
We're with a pretty basic one to get started here. And it is, so you could probably put know your rules, but I just want to go with know your league's roster settings. So the obvious one is super flex versus one quarterback and how that changes the values there, right? If you got 2 quarterbacks, obviously you want to go early. You're going to see at least 4, probably 5 quarterbacks go in the first round. And if it's a single quarterback league, you can punt it till the very end and still find someone valuable and try and stream the position. But the other one I want to talk about is 2 versus 3 wide receivers, because I don't think we give enough credit to, if you're playing 3 wide receivers, you have got to be pretty aggressive early in getting wide receivers because it drops off. It's a good position, but there is a clear drop off after the first few rounds. By the middle of the 6th round, we're talking guys like Chris Godwin, Rome Odunze didn't really show a whole lot in the middle of his first season. Travis Hunter's a rookie. They could be great. I'm not saying that, but I want that as my wide receiver 3 if I'm playing in a wide receiver 3. I don't want to be relying on that pretty early. So know what your league roster requirements are and be aggressive early to fill. If it's overstocked at one position like that, fill it early. You don't want to get hung out to dry at it early later.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Understanding your league rules. I remember doing this a couple of years ago, and I wrote it in the notes here, pulling them up. Howard Bender was on the show, and he did something very similar, and he just it was just know your damn rules. And I was like, yep, that pretty much sums it up. You have no idea. I mean, it happens in baseball too. Like you get in the draft, and somebody's just like, hey, wait, is this a half PPR or PPR? It's like, oh man, all right. That's bad. It's really not that hard to pull up that rules page and just read it. It takes 30 seconds to a minute to kind of skim through it. But it's super important to be able to know how to draft and then pick players off the waiver wire, know who to start, and AJ froze. So
that was a prime screenshot opportunity that was missed.
I thought about it. I didn't know he was frozen at first, and I was about to go to him. So so we'll get to this here while we're waiting for AJ to hopefully pop back in here. In a 3 wide receiver on a 3 wide receiver roster, would you be more inclined to go hero, RB, and wait for your second one until mid round? Absolutely. Jamie, we do have a show coming up a little bit later in the draft season here. We're going to go through more draft strategy talk. So this will absolutely be part of that. But since you're asking it now, that is hero running back is kind of my new like go-to plan if I can. Obviously I don't go into any draft saying I have to do this, I have to do that, because that'd be terrible. But hero RB is kind of what I lean toward. I'm an old school like RB guy, so I still like to get at least one good one. I can't go on the 0 RB hill yet. I'm not there yet. But I don't know, Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, on a 3 wide receiver, I want one running back in the first 2 rounds. Like you said, I'm not like locked into it. If there's a value there and I can end up taking 2, I guess I would do that. But in 3 wide receivers, I want one still in the first 2 rounds. If it's early, one of the big 3. If it's at the end, I think I'm higher on Devon Achane than most people right now. I think Devon Achane can be RB1. And not a lot of people seem to think that. So I would probably get Devon Achane towards the end of the first round, early in the second round. And then I would just try to get 3 receivers probably in the first 5 rounds. Maybe if the tight end value was right, Trey McBride falls to me at the end of the 3rd round or something like that, I would take that. But otherwise, yeah, I want one running back who I feel good about, reliable about. And then I want 2 or 3 receivers who I feel are going to get at least 135 targets. And those don't grow on trees. You got to get them early. So, yep, go get your safe running back and then load up.
Yeah. All right. So AJ unfortunately just had his power go out, so we're going to lose him at least for a little while. Sounds like it might be back, but he's waiting for everything to kind of reboot. So in the meantime, we're just going to go and kind of with league rosters and settings. This isn't necessarily a tip on how to play, but if you're a commish and you're setting up your league, look, I love me some Scott Fishbowl, right? I love me some of these, all flex leagues, super flex, tight end premium, first downs, targets, like fumble, you get 300 yards passing, you get an extra 20 points. Like, fine, I guess. I don't know. Too many of those, I think, just makes it a little too complex. And there's already so much randomness in fantasy football as it is. When you just add extra layers of randomness, I think it takes away from it just being a game where it's at all predictable. Like you just make it super hard. And it's just too complicated. So in my opinion, if you're setting up a league, especially if you're a beginner, keep it simple, right? PPR, half PPR. If you really want to go standard, knock yourself out. But those are the 3. Right? Keep it there. I wouldn't worry about the bonuses. I wouldn't worry about points per carry, points for negative points for incompletions. No punters. No head coaches. I've seen like that kind of stuff. For the casual, the beginner people, just keep it simple. And then on the flip side of that, though, like if you are a commish, and trust me, I've been in this I've been in this spot before. I've messed up the league settings, a couple of times in all the years I've played. But you absolutely have to make sure everything is set up properly. All these platforms are different, right? I know Sleeper is like the new popular one, but it's different from MFL. ESPN was pretty basic, where it was just sort of like, hey, here's your setup. Boom, you can't do anything with it, right? But it was impossible to mess up. But now you can customize anything when free agency runs. If it's fab all week long, that kind of stuff. If it's waiver, first come first serve after the first waiver run. When does the first waiver run actually go? And in my opinion, the 3 a.m. rule that it was just always like ESPN and Yahoo and CBS and everybody just said it runs at 3 a.m. Tough, deal with it. Now that Sleeper and MFL and are allowing us to change that, you have to change it. 3 a.m. is stupid. I'm sorry. Me and Jeff Ratcliffe will die on this hill. I hear him complain about it all the time on a show, and he gets so much hate for it. The 3 a.m. waiver run is stupid. Nobody in their right mind is waking up at 3:01 a.m. to check to see who's first come first serve on the East Coast. And if you're on the West Coast, you get a huge benefit for it because all you have to do is stay up till midnight. That's not cool to me. So, but anyway, back to the setup. If you're commish, make sure the playoffs are set up right. Collect any dues, any money before the draft. If you do not, and you have to chase people down after the season, good luck. Because good luck finding that team that finished 12th place and doesn't want to pay you, your $100 buy-in. Mm-hmm. There's no way. Jamie, you stay up till 5 a.m. anyway, man. I don't you don't count. I stay up. I wake up to check waivers. You're already awake. I know this because I get texts from you at 3:30 in the morning. So, you think I'm kidding, but he's laughing, so he knows. Mm-hmm. I'm right. Look, really, what it comes down to if you don't set things up right is, one, it's going to mess up the league, right? There's either just going to be stuff's not supposed to run when it's supposed to, or if you forget to choose a setting, right, or a scoring setting, someone's going to find a loophole and be like, oh, well, I can take advantage of XYZ. And if it's not found out till week 3, it's almost impossible to go back and retroactively change it because you're going to affect, league standings at that point. Mm-hmm. So make sure everything is in place right away from the get-go. It's just going to make your whole life a lot easier. And like I said, just keep it simple. The KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid. It really is all it comes down to. So, so that's my number 5. AJ did not write his number 5 down on the sheet before the power went out. So we will skip him. And Corey, we'll go to your number 4.
My number 4 is more of when you're actually in your draft room and you're trying to break a tie between a few players, what is one way to look at it? And I tend to favor teams with bad defenses. And you're thinking, well, how does that affect the offensive player? Well, for one, typically it means high scoring games. So higher if your team has a bad defense, the offense has to score to keep up. And that's how you get big shootouts, and that's how you rack up fantasy points in a hurry. So last season, the Carolina Panthers had an historically bad season, averaging over 31 points allowed per game. That's a lot. One of the worst defenses ever. Now, their offense wasn't great, but hey, Chuba Hubbard looked pretty good at times, and Bryce Young towards the end seemed to figure it out, and the whole offense started to click around him. Other team, the Cowboys, 27.5 points allowed on defense. Even though Dak got hurt, they had to throw the ball a lot. That's why CeeDee Lamb was still fine, because Cooper Rush was throwing it all the time because they were playing from behind because they couldn't stop anybody. Mm-hmm. Tennessee, 27 points. The Browns, Jags, and 49ers all at 25.6. Bengals, 25.5. Raiders, 25.5. And Colts, 25.5. When I look at those teams from last year, and everything can change, right? I get that. I'm not saying that you just got to expect those to be the same bad defenses again. I do think the Bengals will be bad again. I think that's the one that's easy to point to. They didn't really do a whole lot to their defense, and their offense is amazing, and there's no reason to think it won't be again. So Joe Burrow led in pass attempts last year. I'm fully expecting him to lead in pass attempts again this season because they're going to be playing from behind, and the strength of their team is throwing the ball. So when I look at that, if it comes down to a tiebreaker between T. Higgins in the mid rounds and Jerry Jeudy or something like that, I'm probably going to favor T. Higgins because he plays with a poor defense, and Jerry Jeudy's defense in Denver is awesome. And so, or in Cleveland, I guess he is now, but like something like that, Cortland Sutton,
Mm-hmm.
I will favor the player with the worst defense because I think they're going to get more targets because their offense will have to throw the ball more.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. You do have to be a little careful though. Like there are teams like like Carolina, right? They were just bad on both sides. There wasn't a whole lot to do. I mean, like Chuba Hubbard was fine, but like there was a lot else. I mean, I know Bryce Young at the end sort of became
He looked good. He looked good at the end. Yeah.
But it was hard to trust. It was kind of like, do I really buy in on this? And it was hard to pull the trigger on him in pretty much any league. And I totally get it. At that point, you're in the playoffs, and it's like if you're in the playoffs, you probably have a pretty good quarterback. What would be my guess? I will say this, though, and I want to ask you a question because I'm pretty sure I would guess people listening and watching would have this question too. Poor defenses, does that mean you would typically favor going after that team's quarterback or receivers and kind of fade the running back? I know Chuba Hubbard might be the exception to that rule, but in most cases, because they are playing catch up, do you just kind of go, the running back gets phased out of the game so quickly sometimes you just kind of fade the running back?
It depends who the running back is, right? Like if I'd expect Miami, for example, to have a pretty poor defense the way they play, but I just said I love Devon Chin. 11 catches last season, so and a player like that, I don't fade it. But some of these other teams we talked about here, Tennessee, yeah, they have a split situation, right? Which I'm not overly afraid of committees at this point. Most of the situations in the NFL are committees, but when I don't know who's going to be on the field if they're playing from behind with either Tajay Spears or Tony Pollard, then I don't really have a whole lot of interest in either of them. The Browns, I mean, who knows where that running back room is going to settle to in. It's like they have a couple of rookies, and then the Jags, there's a triumvirate of running backs there. So like those type of teams where they're going to be playing from behind, I expect them to throw the ball, and there's a question as to how the running back situation shapes out. Those I will probably downgrade just a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not even so much who is the running back. It's if you're gonna get one, it has to be a pass catching back.
You have to know. You have to have clear.
Right on cue, Kyle said
it. Yeah, you have to know who that is, and that's the difference between some of those ones. Like the Browns just added 2 rookies, right? Tennessee, Tony Pollard can catch. Tajay Spears can catch. They just have an odd situation where at the times there's no rhyme or reason to who they sub in and out, right? And Jacksonville, they just added another pass catching back to the offense. If it was just ETN and Tank Bigsby, I had a clear understanding. Like Tank Bigsby is the running option, Travis Etienne's the third down option, but now they added Bashal Tutin to it. So that's why like those type of situations where we don't have clearly defined roles are the ones that worry me.
Agreed. All right, so I'll mention AJ's here, and if he jumps in, then he can kind of go deeper into his. But he said, just use common sense. Don't be afraid to just trust your gut, especially when drafting. Right? Sometimes all the stats and all the experts, us included, can just be like, no, it has to be this, blah blah blah. It's your team, right? Do your thing, man. Go get your guy. Sometimes, like. Don't go crazy, don't go drafting, some guy who probably gets drafted in the 10th round in the second round, but go get your guy. You like him around early, go get him. Like your guy. I think that's where he was going with that.
Of course, you go. Yeah, it's your team. Like you said, you want to have fun, money or not. Like the idea behind fantasy football is to have fun doing this. So like, go to get if you want somebody, go get him. The only time last season where I felt like I really caved was I think the first pick towards the end of the draft cycle, right? Everybody's still taking Christian McCaffrey 1 overall because it was, he's probably going to play week 1. And I'm like, I really want to take someone else here, but I actually got the first pick. I don't have any Christian McCaffrey. Fine, I'll take him. And that came back in play. Because I remember thinking like, I'm going to take Justin Jefferson here. I'm going to love my team. But then it was Christian McCaffrey's going to go. He's still the unanimous number 1. How can you not take him? And I got 3.5 games out of production and 8 a bench spot all year.
I had the number. I almost never get the number 1 pick. I got the number 1 pick in Kings Classic redraft, snake draft. I mean, I got the number 1 pick in 2 other leagues. I forget which ones, and it ended up and a couple of these drafts were actually kind of early on, and I still Kings Classic is like early-ish August, and it was still kind of unknown. Still, actually you still really thought he was coming back at that point. But I remember turning to Keith and being like, I don't know, man. did we just fade it? And we didn't. So yeah, this is why auction is better than snake. However, I will say Kyle got bit by that one too, because I bid up for CeeDee Lamb and he started off super slow. So that was fun. It is what it is. So but AJ's back. So let me let him give a little input on this as well. So AJ, I just brought up your number 4 here about trusting your gut. I kind of just said, go get your guy when you want to go get your guy type of thing. If you believe it, go do it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I moved this one down for since I knew you were talking about the draft stuff. But yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to trust yourself, trust your instincts. Like especially if you've been playing fantasy for, years or a decade, whatever, you should know enough to be able to be comfortable with who you're picking. But just, don't go overboard with it. But, especially when you're drafting, get your guys and be happy with it. If someone gets one of your guys, just pivot. You'll be okay.
Yeah. And look, this kind of leads right. Like we were all seemingly talking about draft stuff here on this number 4. I don't think it was planned that way. It just sort of happened that way. But mine is don't go into a draft with a predetermined plan. I kind of mentioned this early on too, but if you go into a draft saying in the first round I have to get a running back, in the second round I got to get a receiver, third round a receiver, fourth round running back, you're done. Like you have to be able to adjust. You're going to get a string of, what happens if you've got the 6th pick and the first 5 picks are running backs and Jamar Chase is staring at you in the face at pick 6. Now, look, probably not going to happen. I get it, but I've seen absolutely crazy things happen before. Like what if that happens? You're telling me you're going to pick the 6th running back off the board because you have to take a running back in the first round. Like you cannot go in with like, these are the rounds I got to take a player. When you do that, you pigeonhole yourself into, taking players that aren't as valuable. To me, it's value-based drafting is like top of the list here. And, our draft cheat sheet over Fantasy Six Pack helps with that. But also, you've got to be able to know your roster, know what team needs are, know where your strengths and weaknesses are as the draft goes on. And yeah, maybe, in round, 8 or 9, you're looking at your team and going, well, I really wanted to have, 5 receivers by this point, but if some crazy value at running back, or let's say, one of the top tight ends has fallen to the 8th, 9th round, you got to snatch that up, man. You got to be able to find the value where it is. And so being able to adjust on the fly during a draft, especially if you got like 30 seconds, 60 seconds on the clock for these, these quick drafts like that, you've just got to be able to adjust. And so I beg you, do not go in with a predetermined plan. If it takes you mocking a bunch or studying cheat sheets, studying rankings, studying ADP, to whatever you have to do to know the player pool, know where players are falling, knowing where the quick adjustments are that you can make if you get sniped or if a run at a position happens that you're not expecting, that kind of thing. You've got to be able to adjust. And so practicing helps, studying, all of these things like our rankings of our Fantasy Six Pack and all these numerous sites, across the industry. That's what you got to do. So, all right. Number 3. What? Sorry,
I was going to say I can jump back and do my 5 real quick.
Yeah.
So basically, it was, and I don't think you've talked about it, and it's not on our sheet. So
I mean, except for the joke.
Well, that's what it ties into. Me drafting kickers early or too many kickers. Don't reach on a kicker or a defense, in the earlier rounds. Like these roster positions are so volatile every week. And, 1 week you can go out and get, one of the best kickers in the league on name value and who's been accurate throughout their career or whatever. And then they just shit the bed for you. Week
Justin
after
Tucker.
week.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was thinking about. He burned me last year in a couple of spots, and he was an easy drop at that point, and you just find the next guy up. Kickers especially, you can try to play matchups and see if that works, but just don't waste your depth draft picks on these players. But that said, I'm not against drafting multiple defenses. And I'll get to that later on, though.
Ooh.
Little teaser. Assuming I stay online.
Assuming I stay online.
Okay.
Multiple defenses.
Go out.
All right. Let's go to number 3. Corey.
I will lead off my number 3, and it's don't be afraid of rookies. I feel like I fall into this one, so this is kind of as much as a reminder to myself as it is for anybody else, where it is really easy to sometimes to be like, I'm going to build a really safe team where I have Jacoby Myers and all these guys who I feel reliable about, and then you have no upside potential. You have no blow up upside potential. So just look at the rookies from last season that at least parts of the time carried fantasy value. At quarterback, Caleb Williams. It wasn't the greatest rookie season, but 2 quarterback leagues, hey, he provided value at times. Jaden Daniels was amazing, right? Jaden Daniels, you could have gotten outside the top 10 rounds in ADP, and now he's going in the top 3 rounds, just showing how much more this can rise. Drake May, Michael Penix at the end, Bo Nix, Joe Milton stepped in for a week and even showed off. So don't be afraid at times to use a rookie. At running backs, Bucky Irving was a 4th round rookie or NBA NFL draft pick and came out and went for 1,600 rushing yards or 1,600 total yards last year. Tyrone Tracy is my boy. Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Isaac Arendo, Audric Estime, all those running backs at times carry value. Now, the challenging part is you don't want to necessarily roster them all year, but you want to keep some of them on your bench. Just take a late shot on some of these guys. At tight end, we know what Brock Bowers offered, but at receivers, where you really hit big last year, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison Jr. in what was supposedly a disappointing season still had a good year. And then, Xavier Worthy, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen McMillan, Devon Vele, all these guys at times carried value, and you just got to be willing to take a shot, because I know that Jacoby Myers will probably finish between wide receiver 25 and 36, and I'll never feel bad about starting him. He would be perfectly viable, but I'm not going to win a league because I have Jacoby Myers on my team. You can win a league taking a late shot on a player like Xavier Worthy. So it's kind of just finding a balance of safe and reliable and big upside shots, and a lot of times those are rookies.
Yeah, we'll get into a little draft strategy with some of them in that show as well. So I don't want to dig too deep into it, but yeah, I've been having to convince myself to draft more rookies as well. Pull the trigger on them. I've been always afraid. So
we tend to think similarly in that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, AJ, what's your number 3?
My number 3 would be, and it's kind of in the same vein as don't be afraid to draft rookies, but it's setting up player tiers for each position that you're drafting. So, if you know that there's a couple rookie receivers you want to get, make sure you're siphoning them into your tier setup, so you don't overbid or overdraft one of these guys when you have other better options, more consistent options that are tried and true. Those players should be ahead of most of the rookies. But once you get to, again, like the Jacoby Myers is a great example, wherever he is on your tier, you could definitely have some rookies ahead of him, even knowing that he's going to be fairly consistent, maybe not in the end zone, but yardage and receptions. So, you got to just look at the players you want to go after and set up different tiers. And that way, who you're going to be able to see as the draft starts falling. And then you'll be able to, kind of round out your team that way.
Yeah.
I always make tiers for myself. I use a combination of our rankings, our draft cheat sheets, and I still make a tier. I do it on a spreadsheet. I know some people still handwrite them. Glorious, go for it. But I make a spreadsheet and then I just color code it, and when it's gone, I strike them through, and still the way I do it, still the easiest way for me to do it. So I'm great with that one.
Yeah. So my number 3 here is You can relate this one to rookies a little bit, but it's really anybody. Careful buying into the all the camp hype talk. Everybody's in the best shape of their lives right now. This guy's
Should've
gonna
wore that shirt.
I know, right? Everybody's gonna get more work. This guy's running faster. Anything, right? Anything that's gonna boost value for these guys. You got to see it on the field, right? And so what I take away from last preseason is, Corey, you mentioned him already, Bucky Irving. He was a guy who throughout camp was getting a little bit of hype, but it was like I didn't really quite know where it was going to go. Like I didn't see it. And then preseason, man, he looked phenomenal. And I know you can't always take a lot from preseason, but he legit looked the part. He didn't work with the first team, that kind of stuff, and that's what you want to see. It's not so much, hey, this guy's making one hand grabs, catching a bunch of touchdowns. This quarterback's not throwing any interceptions against second team guys wearing shorts, right? Like who cares? That stuff doesn't matter. You want to see it on the field. You want to see who they're running with in camp, who they're running with in the preseason games. That's going to tell you the workload, how much the coaching staff believes in them, and whether or not they're going to be relevant and consistent for fantasy. And so there's every year, man, we get this guy's going to be the next big thing out of camp, and there's so many flops from that. So you've just got to be really careful of not buying into the hype, because what happens is that player's ADP just starts to balloon. It's like, it just creeps up. Oh, well, I'm going to go get him this early. Well, no, I'm going to get him earlier. Nope, I'm going to get him earlier. It just keeps happening. And then eventually, like, the value for that guy, like, sure, I might have taken this guy around 12 pick, but at some point he's going to boost up like around 8 pick. And it's like, you've got to bail. Like, the value's not there anymore. I'm not doing it. You can't just go after the sexy name because you're going to look cool in your draft because, look who I left with.
Yeah.
Who cares? It doesn't work. So I feel like you get burned by that more in baseball than you do football. But baseball spring training gets big.
Definitely, because the NFL preseason is kind of a joke now. Anyways, nobody good really plays. So, but there's definitely still hype coming in on especially for the guys that we talked about last week with the old faces, new places. Like, what's such and such going to do with his new team and blah blah blah. Oh, he's going to kill it. Oh, okay, I'm drafting this guy immediately. No, stop. Get the hell out of here.
When it comes to off-season hype, if it doesn't come, like if I don't see it with my eyes, like Joe talked about with Bucky Irving, or it doesn't come directly from a coach, because you got to be. If it comes from a coach, at least I pay attention to it. A lot of times it's just like beat writer speculation, and it's like, this guy looks amazing. He's running so much faster. It's like, okay, well, who else? Does anybody else verify? I could say that too. Like, even if I'm not there, I can make up anything I want. And I just typed in while you were talking to see if I can remember who was like the big stars of preseason last year, and I found an article on Fantasy Pros by Brandon Murchison, so I give him some credit here. Drake May and Bo Nix, so the quarterbacks worked out, but he also had remember Carson Steele? Joe and I actually messaged about Carson Steele not that long ago.
That's right.
He was a preseason star.
For 1 week.
Eric Gray, the filling in the Giants for a while, preseason star. Jermaine Burton, Joe's big fan. Joe's a big fan of Jermaine Burton for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Dynasty league.
And Jordan Whittington were the preseason stars last season. So maybe you could trust the quarterbacks, perhaps.
Even then, man, Drake May was not right. It was
erratic. Yeah, it was erratic.
Bo Nix was a surprise, I will say. The only one I ever bought into right away, right? My dynasty league, my dynasty team was rebuild city last year. I kind of turned it around a little bit, but after the Denver, we did a bunch of camp interviews with beat writers last year. We're gonna try to do it again this year. And after the Denver Broncos guy, I immediately went out there and picked up Vele, who was sitting out there on waivers because nobody had heard of this guy. And he was like, if there's one guy you want to go take a stab at in your dynasty leagues, it's Vele. And I was like, I've got a lot of trash on the back end of my roster, so I'm just going to make the swap to see where this goes. I turned him into Isaiah Pacheco and Javian Sanders. I traded away him and Calvin Ridley after Calvin Ridley went off for like 3 games in a row. It was like, peace. I'm done with you, Calvin Ridley. It was an easy trade to pick up Pacheco because my running back room is bad. So
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We're flying through this one. I like it. Off to number 2. AJ.
Who does number 2 work for? Well, works for me when I'm talking about this, and that is don't get discouraged when you receive bad or somewhat insulting trade offers. It's going to happen. You're going to have these people in your league. Hell, you might be this person in your league. Don't, in the same vein, don't send really crappy trade offers either. I mean, we talk about that in baseball a lot too. But try to work with the person. If you get a bad offer, okay, it's going to happen, but see what they're offering and like how big of a gap it's going to be between what trash they're offering for your best player, sort of a deal, and try to meet somewhere in the middle. Like if you just, shy away from trading in general, like your league's going to be boring and you're not going to have anybody like that's really active. So, trades are fun, man. You like Joe said, you got
Steve Hungarter's getting shade thrown his way here by Jamie. Hope you're watching, Steve. Time to send him something really crappy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. Like if they send you a bad offer and you just immediately reject it without any kind of description or anything, like that's kind of a smack in their face. But it's like, dude, don't
do it all the
throw
time.
me this. Like it's fine. Yeah, I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying at least somebody's trying to be active and do something. Just shake up the teams. Even if you're, if they're one of the best teams and you're one of the worst teams, you never know. Like that trade could turn into gold for you and get you back into a playoff race, depending on who it is. So just don't overlook, really bad trades and think of them as completely insulting. Unless they really are, then I'm just all for hitting smash reject and move on.
Put Jamie's comment up on the screen. It's great. It's a fantastic comment.
That one back at the same value, but in my favor.
That's a great answer.
This is good. Where's Steve?
So that's going to happen too when you get these bad offers. So you're going to have to have that reaction.
I wrote an entire article on like how to trade in fantasy, and like it really, it's really simple. You can't play to win the trade. Like unless you are in a league where people just don't know what they're doing, you're not going to pull one over on people. Like no one's trading you, the number 1 running back for 3 running back 2s. Like no, who cares? No way. Like stop it. It's got to work both ways, right? Like the best example is like a team needs receivers. You need running backs. They've got a bunch of running backs. You've got a bunch of receivers. Bingo. That's your trade partner. Go figure something out. You got to find it where it works for both teams. Like, no one's just going to hand you a championship. Like what? Like, no, just stop it. All right, Corey, I realized I went out of order here. My bad. But you're up.
No, doesn't really matter to me. I have just kind of along AJ using tiers and certain things like that. Don't just go off of ADP. And I reference ADP, you reference ADP. We all reference ADP on these fantasy shows. But do not just wow, that is another excellent message there. I'm sorry.
But my keep trade cut says my 4/3 equals your first raider, so it's fair. Trade calculators, love them.
Yeah, don't use those either. That should be on here too. Do not.
I look at them just for fun, to be like, what does it say?
But as long as you don't use them for anything other than just.
Oh no! I love the people who send me trades and are like, but my trade calculator says, and I was like, I'm my own trade calculator. You go away.
Yeah. I don't
away from
use
me.
those because I can math in my head for
I
fantasy.
can math in my head. Okay, nice. I don't
Do
know
a
why that
little
made me
math.
laugh. That sounds like something my kids would say. I can math in my head.
But like, just don't go off of ADP when you're at your draft table. Like,
Mhm.
use the rankings, use the tier system. If you go off ADP and you plug your draft back into like a draft analyzer, like at Fantasy Pros or something like that, it's going to kick you out an amazing score. And then you're going to get to the league week 1, and you're going to have like 6 wide receivers and like 3 running backs because you just picked the top player on ADP, and you're going to have 3 quarterbacks and something like that. You have to balance your roster, and like I said, that's a combination of like finding the right positions. That's a combination of making sure that you have high upside players and like safe players. It's all about like, you have to make your team work for you. I mean, that's the easy way of saying it. It's kind of vague, but don't just go off of an ADP. You'll have an amazing looking roster, but when it actually comes to playing it out, it doesn't work. So use the tiers, have a plan, but don't be too rigid with it. But make sure that you have a good foundation across your entire roster as far as like upside and safety and the right positions.
Yeah. ADP is a very flawed.
It's a tool, but it's something you have to realize is a tool and don't just like be locked into it.
Yes, it is there to guide you to kind of say, this is an average of where players have gone. You got to realize, and that average range is different for every site too. Corey, you are going to be writing 3 different articles this offseason, comparing ADP values across different time periods, risers and fallers. We also will do an article. We wrote it pretty late last year. I'm going to try to get it in a little bit earlier this year, where we look at the ADP across a bunch of different sites and say, on ESPN, this guy is going way later than he should be. On Yahoo, this guy's going way earlier than he should be, type of thing. Be able to exploit ADP on certain sites as well. Like, know that, hey, this guy, I don't have to go take this guy in the 2nd round because he's not being drafted till the 4th round. I can wait until the 3rd round to take him. Unless you got other really, really savvy players in your league. The problem is that even savvy players, and I fall into this trap too, everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's going, but I'm not going to take him in the 2nd round. He's not going to the 4th round. I would look stupid if I take him in the 2nd round. Well, you won't look stupid in the second if you take him in the 2nd round if it actually works. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you got to remember. But use ADP as a guide for saying, hey, I can probably wait another 6-8 picks, for this guy. If you're on like, you got pick 7, you can come back around a year, right? Type of thing. That's the type of thing you want to use it for. But I'm not drafting based off of ADP. That's foolish. Totally agree with you there. Moving in here to a little bit more of some in-season management, and we do this show every year. AJ, it's probably one of our favorites. It's the overreaction week. We did it for baseball, Corey, so you were around for that one. It's the, oh my gosh, this guy's had 3 bad games in a row. Like, and for football, it's the 1 week overreaction. I mean, my gosh, the players that would be dropped in the
week
first 2
1
weeks.
Reaction usually.
Yeah, week 1, even 2 weeks. I mean, players get 1 or 2 bad starts, and it's just like, oh my gosh, my season's over. I've lost the first 2 weeks because, I don't know, I'm just gonna throw out a name, Saquon Barkley, right? He's going super early. Saquon Barkley, right? But he's done it before. Like, he did it when he was on the Giants, right? He kind of flopped, right? So that's a good example, actually.
Suck.
True, but
suck.
It's like, he started off bad, right? And then but he's gonna get it going. It's like, obviously, I don't think anybody's dropping a Saquon Barkley after 1 or 2 bad games, but like, you're looking to trade him for like peanuts, and it's just like, stop! You can't do that. Like, it's not going to help you. You can't overreact to 1 or 2 bad weeks in a row. The way I look at it is like, imagine if that player had a pretty normal season for him for the first 7, 8, 9, 9 weeks of the season, even just 5 or 6 weeks. It's 1 bad game in week 6, 7, or 8. In the middle of nowhere, you'd go, damn, that sucks. You'd be over here on the podcast like AJ complaining about it the next week. Like we know it happens, you know.
Oh, that happens often.
Had I, you know, I wish I started so and so. It's like stop it. But sorry.
Every day on baseball, it's like, the amount of points sitting on my bench.
Yep.
Same thing for football.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So I just went back and pulled up the scoring in like half PPR for the first 3 weeks from last season. Like after 3 weeks, Tank Bigsby had 8.2 fantasy points, right? Tyrone Tracy had 6.4 fantasy points combined in the first 3 weeks. Chase Brown 14 points in the first 3 weeks. Just showing some of the players.
I remember almost dropping Chase Brown. Now I will say Tank Bigsby. I think I did drop Tank Bigsby because it was like I didn't know if he was going to be the guy. It took an ETN injury ultimately to like really get him going. But yeah, it's yeah, Jamie, I'll put that comment up here in a second. But and Tracy was a weird one too. Like everybody liked Tracy as like a dark horse pick, but like it just didn't look like he had the job. So I kind of got dropping those guys because they were dart throws. But I'm talking like overreacting to like studs, you know, like players that you're drafted in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. So you're kind of trying to rely on. It's like get my chance, man. Like you never know what's going on right now. Mark Andrews is a big one, right? Mark Andrews was horrible last year to start the year. He really turned it around.
He had like 2 games without even a target or a catch or anything. Yeah, he got benched.
Ladd McConkey through the first 3 weeks last season, 21 total points. Cortland Sutton, 19 total points as far as receivers are concerned. So, look, they turned their season around. It's got to be patient. Now, it's tough, as you said. Like, you see in all these blow-up guys, like, you know, Carson Steele on the waiver wire. You got to get him on your team. And
or that goes. Our favorite, Sammy Watkins, back in 2019. The old Sammy Watkins getting that blown up. You know, the MVS, he's like the new – MVS is like the new Sammy Watkins, blows up for like 2-3 games in a row.
Wasn't it?
Sammy Watkins, man, it was always week 1. I love him. And I said it every single year it happened. It was like, don't fall for the trap.
He's like Tyler O'Neill on opening day. He's a home run.
Alec Pierce with a 20-point day last year on opening day. You know somebody added him big. Jane Reed had 31 on opening day last year. Oof. Sorry.
Okay. That's fun. All right. Are we ready to drum roll our way into
let's do our number 1 here, and I'll go back to the original order. So Corey, you are back up.
My number 1 is, it can be a bit of a time commitment, but Joe mentioned it. I'll probably end up writing it during the regular season again, but hit the waiver wire every week. And it can be a bit of a time commitment. In some ways you're going to say, well, I don't really have anybody to drop. Like, just churn the bottom of your roster. And this is kind of like what Joe said, like, you don't want to overreact, but also don't be afraid. So I just went back to last year. Some players with non-kickers and defenses with ADPs between 156 and 182. So let's say they got up to a slow start. Would you have been upset if you dropped Tyler Algier? He was okay at times, but you're probably not upset about it. Ty Chandler, you could drop him. Adam Thielen was okay. Jaleel McLaughlin, Baker? Okay, like Baker, of course, ended up being amazing. So you didn't want to drop him. Yeah. But Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Wright, Luke Musgrave, A.D. Mitchell, Antonio Gibson, Tyler Conklin, and Isaiah Likely. Other than Baker Mayfield, I'm not sure that anybody in that entire section last season would have been someone that you would have been completely upset about if you had dropped. Now, I went back and looked at some of the waiver wires I wrote last season in the Work Freaks 1-3. Geno Smith, he was okay. Rico Dowdle ended up with over 1,000 yards, right? Carson Steele, not so great. Dontavian Wicks, Greg Dortch. Zach Ertz was a top 10 tight end. Tank Bigsby was usable at times. Wan'Dale Robinson was a PPR monster at times, and your boy Devon Bailey. So you just have to be willing to take some shots on when you draft some of these guys late. If it's clearly not working out early on, go ahead and churn him for somebody on the waiver wire. See what you get. Shoot for some upside there. But if somebody gets injured, like, you know, if Bijan Robinson got injured, would Tyler Algier instantly be the top waiver wire bet? Of course he would. But don't hold him hoping for that to happen or waiting for that to happen, because it also might not happen, and then you just wasted a bench spot the entire year that could have been used to try to take some shots on someone new.
handcuffing running backs is a strategy that I both love and hate. It is.
I love it
something
after
where
week 10.
and we get into that a lot with we have like a playoff like primer show at some point. Talks about all the handcuffing as far as who to give to back up your running backs, and we even talk about defenses to stash once you get like super close to it. If you're in a defense league, like it's got to happen because at that point you're just playing to win. You don't need the depth. You lose your star guys at the playoffs, you're not winning anyway, so it's not going to matter. So the waiver wire I'm absolutely all about. It was a term that Richard Seville, who's been with Fantasy Spec for a long time, I can't remember when he started at this point now, probably 2018.
At least.
God, yeah, easily. If not maybe before. I don't even remember, man. He was the first person who ever said this to me, spec ad. And I think now it's like a bigger term in the industry, but it was the first time I heard it. And I was like, what the hell is a spec ad? This was back in, again, like back in 2017, 2018 at least. And absolutely, you got to go after these guys that, look, you've already have a bunch of spec ads on the back end of your roster anyway, most likely, who aren't doing anything. Pick up another one who now is maybe getting a little bit of talk in camp, or the guy in front of him is a little banged up, and so maybe he gets his chance, or whatever. If a guy's been stuck kind of doing the same thing for 3 straight weeks on the back of your bench, kind of just, and would provide basically no value even if you subbed him in, who cares if you lose him? To Corey's point, I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, kind of mentioned a little bit of mine here earlier, and you kind of alluded to it as well, Joe. And it's never too early to plan for the playoffs. You can start in week 1. You can start with the draft, and that's where I was getting at, drafting multiple defenses. Not the best strategy, but it does work. I'm a fan of doing it, especially in shallower leagues. You don't have to do it as much, but if you're in the larger leagues, you probably should get a second defense, in my opinion, because you're going to have a bye week. And if you do, tend to lean a little heavier into trying to get the best defense, ahead of everybody else, you're going to have to get somebody to fill in for that bye week. You obviously don't want to drop that defense if they do turn out to be really good, your first one. So you got to look at matchups there. But like Joe said, once you start getting closer to the playoffs and you're making it, stash away, get the guys that have the good matchups, even if it's like, kind of a bum quarterback. Mr. Elite, Joe Flacco, won people leagues 2 years ago, me included, because he was phenomenal in that playoff run when he was with Cleveland the first time. So, don't overlook anything, and just have your finger on the pulse and get in ahead of time. Drop depth if if you've had a guy sitting on your bench all season, you've plugged him in for like 1 or 2 bye weeks, he's useless to you. You're not starting him anyways. So cut bait or try to trade them, and see if you can get any kind of upgrades and go that route. But you go into fantasy football leagues thinking, I'm going to win this bitch every year. And if you don't, then this may not be for you. But
not first or last.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to play to win. Herm Edwards, you play to win the game.
Yeah, there we go.
So that's what we're doing. We're playing to win the game. Sometimes for money, sometimes not. But you still want bragging rights if you're not playing for money. So stash away and always plan for the playoffs. Look at those matchups.
So I'll say this about drafting 2 defenses. No. But what I have found myself doing in a couple of leagues that play in with defenses still, and one of them is the Fantasy Six Pack OG League, which I cannot get voted out for some reason. Is we all have the same mindset with defenses. It's stream your defense. So what I have been finding myself doing a lot of times, and Corey, you just joined the league, so you're gonna find out a little secret of mine, but it wouldn't be a secret after like week 1 anyway. Like I will draft a defense basically to stream right away. I don't go after the Ravens hoping that they're not gonna have a 16 game stretch of just juggernaut games. They're gonna play the Bills, right? They're gonna play all these teams, and they might be fine those games, right? But like they might be fine, but they're not gonna be good that week, right? Unless they lucky to go a touchdown or something like that, right? So what I will do is I will draft my defense for that week 1 matchup. And I forget who I did last year. I remember slam dunk to last year. It was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So, but what I found myself doing later on in the league is because I was always fighting with everybody on Fab that Wednesday for the top 1 or 2 defenses. I was fighting with everybody for the same teams. So what I would do is where we're talking about spec ads, drop the last guy on your bench for whoever Sunday before the games, right? I would go drop my player who I know I'm not going to use or, doesn't really matter. And I'd go pick up next week's defense before everybody else can go get him. Mm-hmm. I might do it Saturday. Who knows? Yeah. I would just go make sure I get him so I don't have to worry about it. And then, you know what? The defense that I streamed for week 6 or 7 or whatever it ends up being, they are my drop. Because I'm not going to use them anyway. So who cares? So that's another little trick that you can do. And that's kind of how you get around having to draft 2 defenses or draft one a little bit early. Like you can still take one of the last ones because in a lot of these leagues, people are just looking at the top 10, top 12 lists of defenses. It's going, yep. No, go look at week 1. Go find the streaming matchup. Go find the team playing the Carolina Panthers, right? Who cares? I don't even know who it is yet, but those are the teams you want to go target right away and just hope it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes teams surprise you. I bet teams were targeting the Commanders, and that didn't work out very well. So, but it's if we knew exactly how it was going to work, it wouldn't be a game, right?
Target the Saints. Always target the Saints.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So
I was trying to think them and I would imagine the Browns are still a pretty big target at this point. They were, and Jamie mentioned them earlier. They scored. The takeover plays around right on cue, man. Yeah. It's like you're in the room with us, Jamie.
Titans.
Just to rebuttal.
Rookie quarterbacks, they take sacks, man. Even though they don't throw a lot of picks, they take lots of sacks. Most of them.
To rebuttal in a sense, but in agreement also in the other sense. If you do ultimately go for my philosophy of not being afraid to draft 2 defenses, try to find 2 defenses that offset and complement each other week to week. And by that, I mean weeks 1, 2, and 6, 7.
It just sounds so hard.
It is hard.
It's so hard to roster both. It's just so hard to roster both defenses all year long with bye weeks and injuries.
Size of your bench.
Who the hell are you going to drop? You're not going
to keep both of them the entire season. That's
why I wouldn't draft either one of
them. Fair point. To each their own.
All right. So my number 1 here, and a little promotion at the same time, but it's true though. Look, find whatever resource you trust, whether it's us or whoever, right? FTN, Fantasy Alarm, Fantasy Pro, whoever it is that you trust, their rankings, their tools, their analysts. Use their resources. Use multiple resources. Honestly, look, I don't just look at my own stuff. I don't just do my own stuff. I will read other people's stuff and get other opinions. I don't want to be just stuck in a bubble and be like, oh, I'm the only one who has an opinion that matters. Hell no, I know that. It's stupid to think that. Find resources that you trust, whether it's rankings, draft cheat sheets. We've got one over here. There's lots of other sites that have, those league sync tools. I don't have the fancy stuff like that, but our tool is pretty good. We've got a bunch of other things over here too. A bunch of sites have a lot of things. And then look, don't be afraid to ask for help. Jump in our Discord, especially if you're a member. Jump in our members only channels. We'll give you, we answer all of the questions that you have. Other Discords, Twitter, Reddit is really good. I know, I talk with the guy who runs the Fantasy Football Reddit all the time, and great guy. And they do a lot of like AMAs over there. And so there is just a slew of resources out there, a slew of people who want to help you. Just go ask the questions. If you're kind of like debating one or two players, ask. People will answer your questions, I promise you. And that's how you got to do it. Whether it's for draft time or waiver wire advice or trades, whatever it is, unless it's a trade calculator, I would say use it.
That's a good one. Oh, yeah.
Math in your head, people.
Math in your head. Math in the head.
So, yeah. And of course, if you want to use us, we would love to have you jump in and use all of our tools and all of our rankings, and talk to us on Discord. F6P pods is the promo code. It's scrolling here on the bottom. The number 6P pods. So 2 P's. Probably should figure out a better way to do that one. But that's the promo code for now. 15% off all of our plans. So jump in to get that. Like I've got one little last final one. So I think Corey, you said it a little bit earlier, but just to kind of reiterate this, like fantasy football is a game, people. Can you have some fun? It is not the end of the world if you lose. Like, look, I know some of you play in really heavy money leagues. Great, and it sucks to lose all that money. Don't play in leagues like that if you can't afford to lose the money, right? So, not that it's still fun to lose a couple $100, in a fantasy league, even if you can afford it. But if that's causing you stress and anxiety, don't play in a league like that. Play in a free league. Play in a league that's $20, whatever. It needs to be fun. Trash talk with your friends, that kind of stuff. I mean, AJ, you and I got into it, man. I hated you. I was like, who's this clown coming in on the message boards talking trash? Like, I don't even know who you were.
Immediate trash against.
Immediate. Really, it was just like. It was like, what? He didn't know anybody else.
What's up, fuckers?
One guy. Yeah,
I'm here.
One guy who invited him into the league, and I was like, Jason, who's this guy AJ? Like he needs to slow his roll.
He's very aggressive, and I don't approve.
I was like, man, I'm all about trash talk, but like, he doesn't know anybody. What the hell is this guy's problem? No, but trash talk is all good. As long as it's not over the line. If you want to do like the league punishment things, that's all, it's all for whatever makes it fun for you. Get together, do a draft, draft parties, whatever it is, man. I love doing the live drafts. I'm fortunate enough to be able to host the DC Scott Fishbowl live draft here with Jeff Lambert from Going for Two. I'm going to the one in Baltimore to do my own draft this year. I'm finally not drafting in the one I'm hosting, which will make it so much easier to run. But I'm in a couple other ones live, the Crab Cake League from with Scott Simpson and Denny Carter and some other guys here that live in the area. Justin Bruni is in it for Fantasy Six Pack. AJ, you were in it for a hot minute. You bailed.
I was in it since the beginning. I just jumped out this year.
Loser.
Whatever.
But anyway, that's what it is. It's supposed to be fun. And at the end of the day, you really can't control anything. You can't control the play on the field. Don't get mad. Don't start tweeting at people. Don't tweet at the players. They don't care. You make them hate us even more than they already do. So
most detestable.
All right. So that's it for the show. I had fun doing this one. I love doing this one every year. So yeah. that's it for show. I think Corey, you looked up we're doing what, sleepers next week? Is that what we said?
Sleepers next week, July 3rd, 1 week from today.
Yeah. So yep, we'll be jumping on here talking some sleepers, and I think we're doing some bust the week after that. So be a good time rolling into a lot of good content for you guys. And of course, we are pumping out the fantasy content constantly over here at Fantasy Six Pack. A lot of our team specific draft guides is what we call them. They're basically like team previews, jumping into like, you know, kind of the hot questions, hot topics for all the teams, giving you a little bit of a deeper insight to all, you know, the players of the positions and kind of what you can expect from everything. Because even like a sleepers article can only touch so many players, so you want to kind of get everything. So these are great articles. Go ahead and look them up, and then come early July, we'll start rolling into like our sleepers list, our bust list, our, you know, do not draft list, our overhyped list, you know, that kind of stuff. All those kind of articles. But this is what we like to start with. I love starting with these articles. But all right, Jamie's over here. I'll be mocking After Dark tomorrow for Scott Fishbowl on a Club Fantasy if you want to tune in. Love the Scott Fishbowl stuff here. If you want to check out our cheat sheet, I do have a Scott Fishbowl version specifically, and that one is completely free. It is locked for the Scott Fishbowl scoring, but it gives you a little preview as to kind of what it looks like, even if you're not in Scott Fishbowl. It kind of gives you a little sneak peek as to kind of what you can expect with it. So if you like it, there's a promo code inside that cheat sheet just for you to use. So yeah, jump in, ask me any questions if you have them. I'm always willing to answer anything. So
you should ask me, as somebody who's played in one Scott Fishbowl and finished in the top 10. I feel like I deserve to get some questions too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and I believe you used my cheat sheet for that last year.
Honestly, I might have. I don't even remember. I just remember I got lucky and took Brock Bowers. Like that's mostly it. Like,
that'll do it in a tight end premium.
Point, like.
In a tight end premium, that'll do it.
Brock Bowers and Jonnu Smith, baby.
Yeah, man. We have John Lepresto over here, who is a 2-time finalist in Scott Fishbowl. Now, granted, it was years ago, but still, that's impressive. I got to the semifinals 2 years in a row pretty early on and have not had as much luck as of late, but I've made the playoffs every year but one.
I was leading going into the last week last season.
I do remember that. Man. I thought you had a chance, and then it just fell apart. But that happens, man. That happens in these big industry tournament leagues, man. Beat almost 3,500 people last year. That was impressive. So, all right. Well, that is it for the show. Remember, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave the comments, and we will see you next week. Peace.